Hello everyone, my name is Anya Hawkins, welcome to my project vlog. I am wearing right now one of my favorite sweaters that I ever self-drafted and knitted. I call it Calamagrostis sweater. Calamagrostis means reed grass. The idea of that sweater came to me from colors. I was hiking one time in a beautiful river valley that was totally overgrown with Langsdorff reed grass and with bush grass, with reeds, with willows and so on. And it was late autumn when everything was already kind of beige and gray, and it was windy, it was overcast. It was quite an epic view. And I have some footage from this hike. I will show it to you now. And this landscape this time of year is mostly beige, but with occasional splash of color. And when I returned from this hike, I was inspired to design for myself a sweater that would use specifically this color palette. By that time I already collected quite a lot of yarn, so I was able to find all the colors that I needed in my stash. And as for colorwork motif itself, I wanted something simplistic, something that will showcase these beautiful colors, which was the point of this design. So I chose just simple stripes and dots and speckles and something vegetation-like for this central part. And the yarns that I found for this sweater, they totally, in my opinion, captured the vibe that I was going for. And in my mind, there is a strong association between this sweater and the landscape and nature that inspired me. And now, when I take my designing more seriously, I want to reverse engineer this one and make it in a pattern in a wide range of sizes. Though I'm going to make some changes. There are places that need reworking. Like, for example, this central part, it was supposed to end before I divided for sleeves and the body, but I was not very mindful of row gauge and I didn't manage to hit the spot, so I had to divide right in the middle of this stripe, which is not the ideal scenario. It worked in my case, but only because the sleeve turned out to be dividable to the number of stitches that is in this pattern repeat. And there is like 22 stitches, I think. It's quite a big pattern repeat and it will not work for sleeves for all sizes. And anyways, I would prefer not to have to work color work right at the underarm. So I will make the yoke a little shorter, so I would need to rework this part to lift this band up. Also, I want to make sleeves a little wider. These sleeves are comfortable, but now I prefer sleeves that are a little more roomy. And I already chose yarns for my reworked version. Some yarns are the same, like the yellow yarn. I still have enough to make a sweater. Black yarn, it's the same. This light straw yarn that is in the yoke is the same, and I have enough white yarn to make this motif. So these are the same. I don't have this brown anymore, and actually it was a leftover from different project. That was all I had, so I chose this one, a little more dark and deep in color. I think it would work very well with this one together. And the background here on the body and on the sleeves, it is a different yarn, slightly more brown than gray. I'm out of this yarn, but I have a lot of this one. And for this green band, I'm using different type of green. This is quite bright. It was the only green color that I had in my stash at the time, and I think that this one will work better with those colors. I like this combination very much. This green is much brighter, but it's not so nature-like. I kinda think that this green that I used in my original sweater is a little bit too bright. So here is the plan. I'm going to reverse engineer my Calamagrostis sweater, and I'm going to write a pattern, and I'm going to knit another sample, same but different. So here's the sketch from the same day. Doesn't have anything to do with designing or knitting, but it's just beautiful picture. On this hike there was a small hill, and if you go up in it, if you look at one side, you will see a river with some willows standing in the water. And at the same spot, if you turn into other direction, you would see this just endless vast field of grasses with some mountains in the distance. It was very beautiful. I need an empty page. So this stage is quite long, and you wouldn't be probably able to see the pencil anyway. So I'll see you later. So this is kind of what I do to visualize my design. I don't know how well I managed to capture the changes that I want to make. This is the prototype, this is my planned new version. In terms of color, the background is different and the green is different. And in terms of fit, I tried to show that the sleeves are wider and the body is shorter and also a little wider. And of course the main thing is this green band. In this position here, with my arms spread, it's clearly visible that it is one continuous band. It is not separated between body and the sleeves. When here you can totally see that in my prototype version this green band ended up divided between sleeves and the body, and it should end just before underarms. And so this is the plan for my pattern. So I wrote the instructions for the whole sweater, and now that I'm actually knitting on it, all sorts of little things are coming out. And that's what I find so fascinating about writing patterns. Because if I would have knitted this sweater for myself, I wouldn't even paid attention to a lot of details, to a lot of what's actually going on in this color work, for example. How to explain it? What I want to say is that when I'm knitting for myself, I don't mind complications. I don't mind places where something is not done in the most straightforward way. I don't mind finicky techniques or unnecessary steps. When I'm knitting, I always try different stuff, and I often rip out my progress, and it doesn't bother me. But now that I'm trying to turn my knitting into an actual pattern, I have to keep in mind the comfort of knitter, so that the sweater itself, instructions for it, would not have any unnecessary and overly complicated steps in it. I have to make it as straightforward as I possibly can, which turned out a little harder than I expected, but it also very interesting. Like this color work, there is a nuthatch right on my window. Like in this color work, for example, I'm constantly tweaking places where increases are. I made a chart and I'm correcting it for the 5th time, I think today, and I'm only did like this much. It's not even half of the yoke, because when I made the chart, I thought that I thought through all of those places, but in the process of knitting, it turned out that there are a lot of I will knit for a while, maybe it will go away. I knitted only like third of the yoke, and I am constantly finding places where improvements could be made. I just hope that I will not go over the top, because I know myself. In my quest to make it as straightforward as possible, I can achieve the opposite effect. I'll try not to do that. My tea is gone. It was a white tea with rose hip petal jam. So it's been a while since we last chatted. I'm working on my Calamagrostis sweater. Right now I'm on this plain stockinette boring portion, and it's such a mindless knitting that to make it interesting for me, I thought maybe I will chat with you a little about my process of designing, or should I say more about like technical aspects of writing a pattern, because I designed this one years ago. I'm recreating old sweater. I explain it in the intro probably, although I don't really remember what I talked about there, because it was like half a year ago. I put this project on a back burner for quite a while, not because something is wrong with it, just because life got in the way. So writing a pattern for this sweater, and especially grading it, was quite a weird experience for me, because it is my first big garment. Before that, I only made accessories. I made several hats and several neck warmers, and grading something that big and complicated, it's totally different. But also very fascinating and interesting, and it actually surprised me how interesting it was, because, well, I always thought that I'm bad at math, but it's probably mainly stereotypical thinking left over from back from high school, because I was bored out of my mind there. I didn't even try to learn anything. and I haven't had any application for anything even remotely related to mathematics ever since. But now obviously I need math, and it surprised me just how much more interesting and fascinating I find it. I could never imagine it happening. So my process went like that. I researched everything I could about constructions of the sweater, about grading them, and about proportions of human bodies. And once I felt that I collected enough information, I tried to use it. And I graded the sweater, did a bunch of sizes, and by the end of that process I learned quite a lot. And you know, like when you're learning some totally new for you skill, at first it goes really fast. Like everything has a wow effect. Because you started from zero and then suddenly you know stuff and even more stuff, and it's like whew, and only afterwards it slows down a little. So this beginning of the learning something process is always very exciting to me, because the progress is just, it's obvious. So by the time I finished grading that sweater, I already knew that I can do a better job, because I learned so much in a process. So I scratched everything that I did and did it all over again. I did more research, and I did even more sizes than I did initially, and in the end I was much happier with my second attempt. But by the time I finished my second attempt, I again knew and understood about that process much more than when I started. So what I did, I started over. And I think that I again did a better job than previous two times. And this third iteration I'm actually knitting, and I'm preparing a tutorial for it, but again I'm having the same problem. Like I'm tempted to start all over again, because I think that I can do some improvements in several places. As I found out, well, it was actually obvious as it is, there is much more variety in body shapes than you could imagine. So I think that I need to add to my pattern several instructions for how you can go about making that sweater fit. I decided just now in your presence instead of grading that sweater for the fourth time, I would just add instructions for altering the fit. I think in 3 different places. So you can alter the fit of the yoke before separating, for sleeves and the body, then alteration for the body and on the sleeves. And I think that I will be happy with it. Because my concern here was, like, at what point do I stop fiddling around with this pattern? At what point I start just making it worse instead of better? Because I'm sitting on this design long enough and I'm ready to move on to some new projects. It's my first sweater pattern after all. I hardly think that I can make it perfect, but I hope to make it at least not super bad. Hello there, I'm here with a little update. And don't mind about the freaky stuff on my head, I'm setting up my hair for tomorrow. This is the best way, those thingies. Without curlers, without heat, without any product, I will have nice curls with this method. I'm on the last stages of knitting my tutorial sample of Calamagrostis sweater. I'm finishing my second sleeve. Have I ever mentioned that I don't have a second sleeve syndrome? I probably did, because that's something I like to talk about. I find that this is the most enjoyable part of knitting the sweater, because it's the safe part. It's the part where I can relax, because I already know that everything is worked out great. I already tried my sweater on, I already know that it fits right, that I like it, and to knit a sleeve is just 1 or 2 evenings with a movie or something like that, and this is the restful time. And that is why it's my favorite stage of knitting a sweater. So I'm hoping that today I will finish my sleeve, weave in the ends and block my sweater. And if it will dry by tomorrow, I will go hiking in it, and I will take some pictures to go with my instructions, and I will film some footage to go with my tutorial. But you, being from the future, you don't have to wait until I finish it all up. You can see it right now. You wanna guess what I'm doing? I'm making another change to my sweater pattern. You see, I figured I have fallen so far behind my self-appointed deadlines for this one. I wanted to release it like 4 to 5 weeks ago, so I decided there is no reason to rush now, and I can make a last little change to my sweater. I'm adding an option for another neck. You just saw final reveal how that sweater looks with a neckband, and now I unraveled the bind-off edge, since that sweater is made with a provisional cast on and the neckband was knitted bottom up. It is very easy to pick up stitches again and just continue knitting, and this is what I'm doing right now. I'm making it into a turtleneck sweater. And I will add the instructions for this modification for my pattern. It's not even really a modification even. It's more like an option. If you want a sweater with a neckband, just knit for 1.5 inch. And if you want a turtleneck sweater, then knit for 7.5 inches. And I still have my prototype Calamagrostis sweater. I'm still wearing it, and though the fit is different, visually it still looks very similar. And I wanted to have varieties, so I could pick which one I'm gonna wear today. The sweater with a neckband or with a turtleneck. And that's why in a moment you're going to see another final reveal, this time for the turtleneck version. It is finally done. The sweater, the pattern, the tutorial, all of it, and I am glad. And this is some of my final thoughts about it all. For the first time writing a knitting pattern for big garment for wide range of sizes, I think that this is a success. Time will tell, of course. At the moment, I couldn't have done a better job. Main thing is that this final version of the sweater looks just as I planned. It is a little more cropped, the sleeves are wider, and this green band ends before separation for sleeves, which were my main concerns. And the neck, let me tell you, the circular yoke sweater with a high neck, it is amazing. It looks so interesting and it is so comfortable. I think it's even more comfortable than just a neckband. At least right now I'm like, give me more. I like that design choice very, very much, and I'm sure that in the future I will do more of such sweaters. Only that yarn on the neck is just so black that on my final reveal footage and on the pictures you cannot even see it. It looks like just black void, but it is not. It is 2x2 rib, I swear. So overall, I think that sweater will stay in my wardrobe for a long time. I can see myself wearing it a lot in the future. It is a significant project for me for two reasons. First reason is that it is my first garment pattern, which is a big step for me as a designer. And the second reason is a more sentimental one. You remember that beautiful river valley that started it all? Well, it doesn't exist anymore. It was not an official hiking trail and it was not a protected area, so eventually the urbanization swallowed it. And my photographs and footage and some sketches and that sweater pattern is all that is left from that place, which makes this project even more special for me because I loved that place. I loved to walk there in beauty and peace and quiet of nature. And I'm glad that I have this project to remember it by. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my story behind that design, and maybe you will also knit yourself a Calamagrostis sweater. The tutorial for it and PDF pattern will come out in just a couple of days, and the pattern will be free and available both in my Ravelry store and on my Ko-fi page. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye!